Governor Healey, good to see you. How are you?
Welcome.
Good morning.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us, Governor. So ICE has been back in the news. Oh, you know what? You may have to turn it up.
Yeah, can I turn? No, actually, I need to turn it down.
Oh, turn it down. Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Detention centers in New Jersey with very bad conditions, allegedly, and plans about airports flying into Boston. But you have issued this this new guideline, following up on your executive order from January about what school officials, child care, et cetera, should do if ICE agents show up. Can you tell people?
Yeah, look, as I've said from the beginning, and as somebody who's a former prosecutor, former attorney general, I went after bad guys. I'm all for putting people who commit crimes and engage in acts of violence away. But, what we've seen over the last year and a half are so many stories reported about ICE going into places that are really sensitive places, schools, daycares, hospitals and the like around the country. So I wanted to get ahead of it. We were getting a lot of requests from folks about how to handle these situations. So I issued an executive order that makes clear that ICE is banned from what are called sensitive spaces, daycares, hospitals, healthcare clinics, schools, and that ICE is also banned from using state property, which I've said before. I also have legislation filed that's pending right now. But, this is about keeping people safe. It's about keeping places that people need to go free from interference. And, there are ways for ICE to act and apprehend people. Get a judicial warrant. You can do that. But what we've seen is school enrollment's gone down. People are afraid to send their kids to school. We've had reports from doctors and clinics and from nurses that people are not showing up for needed health care and skipping appointments. And these things don't make us safer as a community. And so that's why I've taken the action I've taken.
So if people do, if an agent were to show up without the valid judicial warrant, are people supposed to call the cops, or what are they supposed to do?
Well, that's part of the guidance that we put out. We actually issued guidance to people about what they're supposed to say, what they're supposed to ask for, how they're supposed to appropriately place signage to make clear what is a non-public area versus a public area. So, that's what is available and out there. We've done multiple trainings on these things. So, my expectation is that there will be compliance when and if ICE shows up. But, my message is also clear to ICE that if you want to get people, there's a way to do that through a judicial warrant. That's the route you should exercise.
This wasn't on our list, but I just read this incredible comment from Trump about Iran saying they're walking away from negotiations. I don't care if they're over, honestly, meaning negotiations. I really don't care. I couldn't care less if they're over. They're over. I think they took too much time. They're starting to get a little boring. What's your reaction to this and the whole last couple of weeks or months since we saw you and Donald Trump?
I'm just really sickened by that. I hadn't seen that, hadn't heard that. I am so disgusted by that. We just commemorated Memorial Day and services where we honor those who are lost in the line of duty or lost as a result of service to this nation. And if you're going to be president of the United States and you have as a responsibility the care of troops, you better exercise appropriate care. And he is a fool. He's incompetent. He's cruel. He's callous. He doesn't give a damn about having sent men and women abroad all over, right down to Venezuela. Let's bomb some people. Now let's patrol down there. No, let's send them up to the Middle East. I mean, we had reports of people on ships who didn't actually have food, service members. So to know that he launched a war that is costing the American public and the American taxpayer $1 billion a day after he's ripped $1 trillion away from health care is just sickening to me. And to know he went in, as we know, without a plan, and now it's just, I'm going to walk away like it's some game. This is the United States of America. This is not how we conduct ourselves. We are a global leader. We are supposed to be a global leader and a superpower, and people from around the world are supposed to look to us and count on us. And he has done everything to diminish the integrity and the standing of the United States, notwithstanding the incredible work and valor of the men and women who serve. They deserve a hell of a lot better from our commander-in-chief. So to know that, I am disgusted. I'll be welcoming folks back from the Guard, from service abroad in a few days. And, I take that responsibility really seriously as Commander-in-Chief of our National Guard. You do not, that just really, really sickens me.
One last thing, Governor, before we get to the calls and texts at 877-301-8970. I think it's fair to say, World Cup starts here in 11 days. I think it's fair to say that the preparation has been a bit of a mess. Are you satisfied with the lead up to the World Cup? And by the way, when you're answering that, we got a call before the show saying the Summer Street thing had been resolved. Is that true? It has been resolved. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What's your assessment of the lead up to the World Cup games?
Look, I think that this was probably never going to be easy anywhere. This is a big international event, but I'm satisfied. I really am. I mean, we're going to have, I think, a great experience for a lot of people starting in, 13 days?
11.
11 days. 11 days. And it's going to bring a lot of people in from all over the world, from around the country. We know we're going to have watch parties and a way for people to enjoy this experience around the state. It's too bad that some of the numbers are down, and part of it is Trump has driven people away. People are choosing to go watch matches in Canada or Mexico instead of coming to the United States. So that is one thing we hear that, I think is a shame, that hotel bookings are not as high as people in this country were expecting them to be, as we talk to and look at other cities as well. But apart from that, I feel really good about the transportation plan, the safety plan, the logistical plan, and I look forward to really great games. I'll also say I've come to know just a little bit more about FIFA and how they operate. They don't make it easy for anyone, and they don't make it easy for sponsorships, actually. They don't allow companies to sponsor events and then brand or advertise. So it's been harder, I think, for the folks who were organizing to secure some of those sponsorships. But at the end of the day, I think this is going to be really terrific, and I'm looking forward to World Cup happening here in Massachusetts.
Two quick things, though. You said your transportation's in place. My hometown, round trip to get to the games, $2.90. Here it's $80. 30 times for the game to go to the World Cup matches. I mean, should we not have made a more serious effort through whatever it's called, Boston 26, to bring at least that figure? It's a lot of money.
Well, it's a lot of money, and it's also just for these matches, right? Remember, in fact, later on today, I'm going to be going down to Foxborough to celebrate the opening of a new commuter rail station in Foxborough that's going to actually benefit us long after these games are gone, and that's a really good thing. Now, when it comes to the ticket prices for getting to those matches, tickets for the games are expensive. There's a limited number out there. There are different transportation options for folks here. What we and Phil Lang decided is we could do something, make exclusive through commuter rail. People who are, again, these are people who are they've already purchased tickets and they're going to the game. There's a way to get, to take advantage of the commuter rail with this ticket. It's a round trip ticket. There are other options that are actually more expensive that you've seen advertised, but it's an option for folks.
Last thing, they're also the new head of DHS who replaced.
Can I say something though on that?
Of course.
Well, while we're talking about commuter rail, here's what I have done that is about Massachusetts and our ridership generally. We have reduced commuter rail fares by 50% for the summer, and on Fridays you can ride the commuter rail for free. And on weekends, you can hop on the commuter rail with your discounted pass and bring a child with you, or actually anyone with you. It's anyone, a guest for just $1. So I'm hoping, and we have commuter rail that runs to all parts of the state. We opened up 2 new lines this year to Fall River and New Bedford. So I hope people take advantage of this. It's half off, free on Fridays, and you can bring a guest for $1 with you throughout the weekend. So take advantage of that and get out and see our beautiful state.
Can you balance a soccer ball on your toe like you can balance a basketball? So before we leave this topic,
on my nose,
the head of the head of DHS, the new head after Christine, is talking about limiting security, which would limit travel at airports in what he determines to be sanctuary cities, which would include places like Logan. Do you know more than just this is a possibility, and does it concern you vis-a-vis the games?
Okay, so
Cup.
our U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the guy who's supposed to be in charge of security for the homeland of the United States, wants to take security out of our airports. It's insane. It's so dumb, and it makes us less safe. Are you kidding me?
Is this happening? Do you know?
No, not that I'm aware of. But, I mean, just to say that, it's probably like any number of things that are said, and then they have to walk it back because it's such a dumb, inane idea. A quarter of the travel through Logan Airport is foreign travel. I mean, it's a huge part of our economy. Massachusetts and Boston, it's a very attractive place for people to visit, to come study here, to spend time here, and to travel through. The idea that you would actually take security and CBP agents out of airports in the United States is crazy. They are there performing an important function, whether it's, to investigate the presence of guns or drugs, to apprehend potential terrorists, you name it. That's what our head of security just suggested. We remove agents in charge of security. Insane.
Let's go to Kevin in the car. Thank you for calling. You're on with Governor Maura Healey.
Hi, Kevin.
Yes, good morning. One of the concerns I have is the treatment of people in the state that become detainees by DHS and ICE. And I understand we have a facility in Burlington. And in light of the recent news coverage of the facility in New Jersey and the deplorable conditions found, I wondered if we are able to get in and inspect the sanitary and whether or not conditions are humane at that Burlington facility. And if they're not, it seems to me that when I was an elected member of the Board of Health, we relied on the Massachusetts Sanitary Code, which is based on the U.S. Sanitary Code, and the local boards of health had the ability to shutter businesses, actually lock them down. And I wondered if the state could do something similar if they find inhumane conditions in any of these ICE facilities.
Kevin, thank you for the call. We appreciate it. Governor?
Well, I've said, Kevin, in my order the other day, no new ICE facilities in Massachusetts. There is this one in Burlington. I know that officials have visited that facility. I'm not aware of any recent complaints about the state of that facility, but I do think your idea about local boards of public health, they should be subject to that in terms of conditions. And, what needs to happen here is we need the Trump administration to end this program of terror and, stop wreaking havoc on our communities and, disrupting the lives of so many people. I was meeting with business leaders not too long ago, and they were just talking about the really negative impact these immigration policies have had on our economy, on our workforce. And, you're seeing that across the country. It's really wrongheaded, and he needs to change course.
877-301-8970. Speaking of Trump for a second, while the Trump administration has agreed to abide by the, quote, pause in this alleged anti-weaponization fund, they're not agreeing to get rid of it, and there's legislation pending in Congress. A bunch of blue state governors have proposed taxing those benefits should someone in their state get an award at 100%. Are you among those governors?
Look, I got a kick out of that. I thought that was a good retort, to the announcement. But look, it looks like that's not happening. So, Trump is backing off. He knows legally it's totally illegal what he was trying to do, and politically he's getting his, kicked by Republicans. So, it looks like that is not going to happen.
877
and it shouldn't happen. It's outrageous. It's outrageous.
877-301-8970. My apologies.
Pam Plainfield, thank you for calling.
Hello, Pam.
Good morning. My question to the governor, what is the status of the Norwood Hospital?
Did you understand that?
Yeah.
Norwood Hospital.
Norwood Hospital.
Thanks, ma'am.
As far as I know, Norwood and the folks there have not been able to find a buyer, somebody to come in and operate the hospital. So, that's the current status of things.
Is
Pam,
there anything the
sorry.
state can do about that?
You know, the state has this. You know, we have continued to be involved and monitor the situation, but right now this is a entirely private matter, and you know, we've certainly encouraged healthcare in the area, but at the end of the day, they need to find a hospital system, an operator who is willing to come in and wants to operate there in Norwood.
Pam, thank you for the call.
You know, Governor, you were talking about detention centers. I read this incredible story a few days ago in the Globe about data centers. This one focused on Lowell. Picture of this, you know, regular neighborhood, two-family, kind of close together, and this massive data center looming up over behind it. And the people there are complaining that they've got not just this ominous black cube of corrugated concrete towers, but they've got this constant droning and roaring, smoke that saturates the neighborhood, mist landing on people in their driveways, and exhaust fumes. So what can you do? And they're not the only town, Lowell, that's upset about this. People are trying to put data centers all over the place. What can you do about these data centers to make sure we're not all sitting with fumes and smoke and mist?
Well, here's my view on data centers, and a couple things are absolutely imperative. Number one, if there's going to be a data center, it needs to be able to generate its own power. It can't take power off the grid and away from the rest of us. Number two, any siting has got to be done with the environment in mind. We've seen data centers, particularly as you look across the West, real concerns about water consumption and the like. All that's got to be accounted for at the outset of any planning. So, you know, I think it's important as we go forward that those principles remain at the forefront. I've directed my team to develop a framework and guidelines for Massachusetts on this, so I expect to be announcing more on this. But those are the things. They can't, you know, you can't suck energy off the grid and hurt other ratepayers, and you can't do harm to our environment, especially when it comes to
But
water.
aren't they doing harm to the environment just because they're massively increasing the amount of fossil fuels they're going to be using, whether they pay for it or whether the town pay? They seem like they're kind of an environmental disaster.
Fossil fuels? What do you
Well,
mean?
well, they've got they take massive amounts of energy, and maybe the town isn't going to be.
Well, that's what I'm saying, Margie. And look, we have data centers operating in Massachusetts. We have data centers operating around the country. And, you know, there is a need for data centers when it comes to the amount of compute power that we are using. I mean, every time, you know, you ask a question into Siri or ChatGPT, it's going through something. It's just the way we are as a world right now. So, you know, we got to be thoughtful about that. And we can't do harm to the environment. We can't do harm to ratepayers. And we should be moving towards renewable sources. And so I've been talking about how do you use geothermal, solar, wind, hydroelectric power? How do you use small modular nuclear power, which is, you know, something that's talked about. I mean, we have to, as I say, they need to be able to generate their own energy. And, you know me, I've been in the camp of moving to clean energy, moving to renewable energy. That's what we've been doing here in Massachusetts.
So, Governor, every month you're here, we talk about housing. So let me raise a couple of things. There's a potential ballot question that would preempt local zoning that requires minimum lot size to be greater than 5,000. I think it's 5,000 square feet. Do you support that?
I don't know. I haven't really studied that. I have been really focused on housing generally and building more homes. And, you know, as a result of the things that we have been doing over the last 3.5 years, I'm proud to say we've brought 100,000 homes online. And that's, you know, from a deficit of 220,000 homes statewide when I started as governor. Most recently this week, I'm announcing, you know, a year ago, I stood before you all and I said, I'm gonna do this thing. I'm gonna try this thing. We've got state land out there where we've got, you know, abandoned courthouses or state hospitals that we're not using. Why don't we look to turn that over to housing? Well, today, folks, I'm announcing that we've got 5,600 new homes that are coming online. 700 acres of what was state land in 33 communities. That's great. It's an example of what we're doing. If you look at Bridgewater State University, there was a vacant lot on campus. They're turning it into 77 housing units. Boston State Hospital, some of you are familiar with Boston State Hospital. Well, there was 10 acres left that wasn't being used. Now that's being developed into 287 rental units. And I could go on. But that's an example of my mentality. Whatever we can do. ADUs. I made ADUs something you can do by right. In fact, if you go online, you can download your own plans to construct an ADU and just give it to a builder.
Accessory dwelling unit, granny flat.
Granny
Yeah, for
flats,
those
we
who
like
don't
to
know
call
what
Or you
an
can,
ADU is.
Yeah.
you know, maybe you have garage space that you can convert into an ADU, or you have a space in the backyard that you could convert to an ADU. We shortened permitting times. Things that used to take a year at the state level are now just 30 days. And we've offered the right kind of tax credits to developers. Later this week, I'll be announcing that we have more tax credits that have gone out for development. I think it's on the order of another, we're probably up to 3,000 or 4,000 units that have been developed in gateway cities, affordable housing, market rate housing in gateway cities as a result of those tax credits. So, you know, these are all the things that we're trying to do to bring as much housing online as possible. Build more housing, build faster. It's not easy when we have interest rates as they are, inflation as it is, tariffs, you know, haven't helped things. But nevertheless, we found a way, and we're going to continue to drive this as our top priority, building homes as quickly as possible. For people looking to buy a home, okay? I just announced a program recently, $25,000 towards a starter home. Anyone making up to $150,000, we're making available $25,000 in free financing to anyone for a starter home. A while back, I eliminated broker's fees for renters. You know, I'm just trying every which way to bring more housing online and bring down housing costs.
Did you see the Globe story that's saying that despite you signing that no broker's fees unless you, the tenant, engage the broker, that it's being honored in the breach, that there's tons of violations? What are you doing about that?
Yeah, I saw that, and I was really, really miffed about that. So you can be assured that we've been in touch with the Attorney General, and anybody who's doing that is going to be held accountable.
Yeah.
Don't do that. I saw that. It really ticked me off. I'm serious. You cannot charge renters broker fees. And anybody who's left a digital imprint of that fee, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah,
Can I ask another-
They're naming names in the Globe story. You should be able to find them
Yeah,
easily.
well, that's easy. But
Well, that's also
you know, it's
random,
also
though.
you know, I heard it was more prevalent, and I was serious.
Yep.
And one last housing question. Mayor Wu was here the other day and mentioned that for, I think it's 4 years now, she's been trying to get the legislature to approve this real estate transfer tax, all the money from which would go to affordable housing. And the Globe reported, based on her data, that from the date she proposed it in 2022, had it been in effect through just last year, the city, Boston, would have raised $160 million for affordable housing. There are about a dozen or more other communities that have the same thing on which the legislature has not acted. Do you support and by the way, it's only a transfer tax on higher cost homes. In terms of Boston, it's $2 million or more. Do you support that tax?
Well, you know, a couple of years ago, I filed something that allowed local communities to opt into something like that because it can go into a bank to help them fund the development of affordable housing. And, you know, we ran into that issue, particularly down the Cape. You know, when you look at Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket, we have 10 teachers a year leaving Martha's Vineyard because they can't afford housing. That's wrong. And it's why we've got to build as much housing as quickly as we can around the state, and that's what I'm trying to do. We'll
so
see
do you support these home rule petitions, which the legislature is doing nothing on?
I'll take a look at anything that comes to my desk.
But conceptually, you support the notion of these taxes because you said you filed one.
I filed something a few years ago that allowed the local option. I'm not familiar with all the specifics of what Boston's put forward, but I certainly am in the camp of we got to do everything we can to build more homes as quickly as possible. I want, you know, I hear so much from, I'm really focused on people in their 20s. People in their 20s and their 30s. I want them to stay in Massachusetts. I want them to grow careers in Massachusetts. I want them to grow families in Massachusetts. And the two things that are getting in the way, the high cost of housing and childcare for some. And that's why we're continuing to fund and grow our childcare programs. I hope we can find ways to incent and work with private employers and do some things to bring, you know, more childcare online. But in the first instance, I am all about building more homes, building more apartments so that our young people can stay and take advantage of this great state. And you know, we're a great state. We were just ranked, actually, the top economy in the United States. We just were ranked, and we were just ranked really high across so many scores. We added 21,000 jobs in the last few months, which is ahead of the national pace. And a reason we were ranked the top economy is because we have a tremendous workforce, and we have a workforce in growing STEM fields, which, we're a place with a lot of STEM industries. And, we're number one in education, number one in healthcare. There's a lot that we have going for us in Massachusetts. What our challenge is, and it's a challenge that we're seeing around the country, is that things are just too expensive. And that's why every day I'm focused on ways that I can drive down costs for families and residents here in Massachusetts.
Are you worried about middle class leaving here? I mean, we've seen tens of thousands of people are leaving the state. How much does that trouble you?
Oh, I think about it every day, Jim. I think about it every day. We've also seen a lot of in-migration, too, to this state. And, as I say, we've added 21,000 jobs in just recent months. And there are things, you come to Massachusetts, first of all, you're raising a family in Massachusetts. There's a reason we're number one in education. We've invested in literacy in our elementary schools, in high-dose tutoring, so that kids who experience, or have experienced some learning loss can benefit from that extra help. Early college, this is a Massachusetts program. You go to high school, you can take classes at a nearby community college for free. You can graduate from high school with a high school diploma and an associate's degree, saving middle-class families money. These are the things that we're investing in. We're investing in our people while we're working to build homes and drive down costs.
Governor, I wanted to ask you about this story about Janelle Nanis in the Globe, talking about things people are doing online. Sharing sexually explicit images of kids, possessing them, taking them, that's a federal crime. But this manipulating these normal images to make sexually explicit images is not illegal here in Massachusetts. There's a story about a mother who found out that her boyfriend had nefarious designs toward her 14-year-old daughter. Why can't we do this here?
We should do this. I filed legislation to do this. I've also put out guidance saying, you do this, and that's absolutely wrong. And, it is, when it comes to our young people, talk to your kids. We've heard reports about young people who are using AI and manipulating images of their classmates and circulating nudes. Like, when I was Attorney General, you did that, you get prosecuted for child pornography, okay? Yeah. Talk to your kids. Educate your kids. This is the stuff that is happening. It is wrong. It is harmful. It is hurtful. And it should not be happening in our state. So it's about education. And it's also about having the right laws in place to hold people accountable.
Well, that's one of the things. I know when you were Attorney General, this mother did talk to your office when you were Attorney General. But that was at least 5. You've been governor for 4 years,
no,
right?
This came up recently, and in response, we filed legislation. It's part of our social media legislation.
But Massachusetts is one of 5 states that is. This is one of the things we talk about all the time. We are like molasses here in Massachusetts. We're one of only 5 states that haven't already outlawed this. Maybe, the legislature has not moved on it.
Well, look, I've taken swift action. I filed legislation. I also put out guidance from our Department of Education to schools on what to do if they become aware of this. So I've taken swift action. I have said repeatedly this is wrong. Perpetrators will be held accountable. I've talked to the Attorney General's office, and it's also a matter of education. But, that is part of a much bigger package that I filed around social media. That package, remember, what it does is not only does it support the bell-to-bell ban on cell phones in schools, but I think more as importantly what it does is it forces the platforms to default to non-addictive features. So getting rid of the algorithms out of the gate that just constantly feed our kids content and putting the power in the hands of young people and their parents to decide what it is they want to see. The platforms can change this tomorrow just by setting these defaults. Will it fix everything? No. Okay, I know that. But I think it is a meaningful step to take to force these platforms to take offline things that we know are creating harm for our young people especially.
You say you've taken swift action. I accept that as true. It's a legislature that is not. As Marjorie said, 45 other states have done that. 49 other states had done revenge porn before we did. we've asked you this in past years, so my apologies. They're 2 months away from a 5-month vacation. Now, they can do some limited things during that period of time, but you just mentioned a hugely important piece of legislation pending. There are other important things pending. Master List this morning said 59% of the 200 members of the legislature have no competition whatsoever. So I don't even understand. Are you okay with them essentially leaving? I know they say they're here working hard. Being able to vote in only limited circumstances for almost half a year, every other year, is that okay with you?
I'm not going to opine on that. I'm not a political pundit. I'm your governor, and I'm here every day filing bills, taking action, issuing executive orders, trying to build homes, trying to, invest in the right sorts of education that we need for our state.
But they're not going to be here to vote on a lot of your stuff.
They're working, actually, the social media bill they're working on right now, and I expect and look forward to having a lot of bills to sign, a lot of bills to my desk over the next couple months.
Alan and Needham,
including the energy affordability bill, because I filed legislation on energy affordability, forcing the utilities to buy energy at a lower cost so that they can pass on to us a lower cost. Doing a number of things that will help get gas and electric bills down, which is another thing that we know is crushing families around the state. So that's an important piece of legislation. I've got another piece of legislation that helps shore up some of the losses we've seen to our innovative economy. All of Trump's cuts to science and to researchers and to the industries that have driven so much of the innovation here in Massachusetts. We're suffering as a result, and we've got the money there, and we should be shoring that up. I don't want China. This is what's happening, folks. When he does those cuts to science and research, when he cuts NIH funding, when he cuts NSF funding, when he cuts NOAA funding, what it means is people can't continue with their clinical work and their studies. And these are folks who are on the cusp of discovering new cures and treatments and new ways of doing things that are going to better the world. And so when that happens, we've seen other countries come to Massachusetts to try to recruit away our talent, recruit away our scientists and those running clinical trials and doing clinical investigations and the like, which taking talent away from Massachusetts, taking talent away from America, right? Going to China with it. How wrong is that? And by the way, Mr. President, what another stupid, boneheaded move to do that, to basically find ways to give away American talent. It makes no sense. That's why we got to take care of ourselves here in Massachusetts. These are the kinds of things that I'm focused on. We've got a lot of talent here, and we want to keep that talent here and continue to grow our economy and grow the jobs.
Elizabeth at the Boston Public Library has a question. She's at the public mic.
Hey, Elizabeth.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks
Welcome.
for coming in.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, Elizabeth.
I want to thank you. This is an oldie but a goodie from a couple years ago. I want to thank you for deeming the EIR from the Hanscom Jetport expansion inadequate. Probably 2024 is when it might have happened. We haven't heard about it recently. The purpose and need is actually in question. The adverse impacts to national park and to endangered rare species and to, but most importantly, to our climate are significant. The beneficiaries can take an alternate way of transportation to the islands if they'd like to, as far as I'm concerned. We all take the carry.
So what's your question,
All right,
Elizabeth?
so the question is, have you heard any, it's been postponed and postponed. Have you heard anything more recently about what's going on with the submittal from the proponent?
Yeah, no, there's nothing before me in terms of a proposal around Hanscom.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Elizabeth, for your question. Governor, you're running for re-election. I know you're aware of that. Actually, you announced it here. I just wanted to make sure in case you'd forgotten. You gave a convention speech at the Democratic Convention this weekend. Let me read a quote from the Globe's coverage. She, that would be you, offered few, if any, pledges of what she would seek to do should she be re-elected. What are the major things that you're pledging to accomplish in term 2 should people re-elect you?
A lot. Housing. We're going to build homes. I talked about the 100,000 homes I've got built in the last 3.5 years. We've got more to build. decreasing healthcare costs. I put together an affordability working group to get serious. We can't wait for DC to lower healthcare costs, and I expect to be out with some recommendations soon. Continued investments in education. We're going to have a framework, a new framework, Jim, for what it means to be a high school graduate in Massachusetts, and it's going to meet the moment. It's going to align with, I'm looking at young kids now. When you graduate from 12th grade, I want to make sure that you're set up for success, whether you're going on to a career immediately, going on to college, or going into the military. And so what are the core competencies that you're going to have? It's going to include, certain subjects that we think are necessary. It's also going to make sure that we have an opportunity for you to have experiential learning, on-the-job learning, so to speak, self-directed. You can work with local employers, internships, and the like. Another component that is important, financial literacy. We don't require that in the state, but we need financial literacy. We need civics. There are certain things that we need, and AI fluency is also part of that. We're going to be implementing that. Growing jobs, the economy, as I look at Massachusetts, we're leaning big into biotech and life sciences, robotics, advanced manufacturing. We have a defense industry with technology that's also applicable to other industries that's really growing here in Massachusetts. And, that's what we're going to continue to lean into, growing the economy, growing jobs, building housing, and making life more affordable. And by the way, we're going to have 2 more years of Trump. He's not doing anything to make life more affordable. So we're going to have to work to fight back, as we did last December. Remember when the healthcare subsidies were going away, the ACA? I had to find a way to cover 300,000 families in Massachusetts. We were able to do that. When he took away the vaccines, we were able to come forward and write a prescription for everyone to get a vaccine if they want it and have insurers pay. So, we're also going to have to be mindful of protecting abortion, protecting women's access to abortion care, which continues to be under attack. So, that's we're going to have our hands full the next couple of years, but I'm excited. I love Massachusetts. We have so much going for us as a state. We have tremendous people, tremendous talent. We've got all regions across the state that offer so much, and we're driving on a lot. And I want that to continue in spite of some of the challenges and headwinds that we're facing. We're resilient. We're tough. I'm pleased to see the jobs numbers, and I'm pleased to see the number of homes that we've built. We just got to continue to with pedal to the metal on that front.
Texter wants to know if he's welcome, that would be the President Trump, to come to Lexington and Concord for the 250th.
She must not have heard the question. You want to repeat it, Marjorie?
He's too busy. He's too busy with his Great American State Fair down there that everybody's bailing on.
Okay, so he hasn't contacted you in that regard.
They invited
Maybe
us
he'll
to
get
that.
dressed up as a
They
Minuteman.
invited us. Get this, right? So we have Massachusetts 250. We have America 250,
Right.
which is an independent, nonpartisan effort, really important. And we're working with them. It's an important year. We've got a lot happening here in Massachusetts with the 250th, with tall ships, with World Cup. But remember, this is where it all began. We like to brag in Massachusetts. And it's important that we celebrate that this year, that we remember and affirm the values that, are in those documents, and that we're part of that effort to become this great country of ours. Separately, I guess he had this idea for his own Freedom 250, whatever, and part of that was going to be the martial arts thing that they're constructing. And that's what kills me, right? Who's paying for this, guys? You're paying for it. You are paying for it. You're paying for the triumphal arch. You're paying for the ballroom. You're paying for the letters that had to go on the Kennedy Center that now have to be taken off, thank God. You're paying for that MMA thing outside the White House.
Yeah.
We're paying for this at a time he is taking from us our health care, our food benefits, our veterans benefits, and so much more, and driving this economy off a cliff. So I get really hot about it. So, Great American Fair, I'll give you an example, right? This guy finds a way to try to get money into his own pocket, any which way. Great American Fair, he invited all the states to participate and wants to charge us to go down and put something on his exhibit, whatever he's creating for Freedom 250. It's just ridiculous.
Okay.
Let's go to Alan and Needham. You're on with Governor Healy.
This is taxpayer money.
You forgot the reflecting pool. I think we're paying for that.
Which
too,
apparently
right?
isn't even done right.
No big contract, 20% profit. Yeah.
Yeah, a no bid
Yeah.
contract. Sole source. Do you know what would happen to me if I did something like that? Everyone had my head, and rightly so. But this is a guy that doesn't play by any rules, no norms. We just got to stay focused here in Massachusetts and continue to drive the things that work. You know, as I say, I'll be down in a little bit opening up a new commuter rail station in Foxborough. I'm proud of the investments we've made in public transit. We just announced a couple new ferry lines. We're going to continue to lean into, you know, making sure that we have done everything to have the best public transit, you know, to have the best schools, to have the greatest access to affordable health care. One of the things I'm really focused on is growing an army, essentially, of primary care providers and mental health providers. I talk to so many people. If they could just have timely access to primary care or to a mental health provider, you know, that would mean so much to so many across the state. These are the things I want to work on. These are the things that I want to improve. These are the things I want to accomplish if given the privilege to serve another 4 years, alongside Kim Driscoll, who is a fantastic lieutenant governor.
You know, you've mentioned healthcare about 4 times in this most recent
It's important.
rant. No, I'm not quarreling with you.
Yeah.
Health insurers, as you know much better than we, are requesting double-digit premium increases yet again, at least the second year in a row. What are you doing about that?
Well, I've directed our commissioner of insurance to take a hard look at this. People can't afford premium increases. We just went through this last year. And you know, that is why I'm so focused on getting at the root of some of this in what's leading to premium increases. We've got to get costs down. So I've said to him, you've got to take a really hard look on this because people cannot afford any rate increase right now. They just can't.
Alan and Needham, you've been very patient. You're on with Governor Healey. Welcome.
Thank you. 2 questions, one political, one traffic. You sound as livid and disgusted with the federal government as probably most of us do. I mean, you just sound disgusted, and we are disgusted. We don't know what to do. What do you think of a national strike? I mean, I know it's really out there, but a national strike. And the question for Marjorie, this is statewide.
Marjorie?
No turn on red, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's
Whatever.
New Jersey all over the place.
Okay,
But
thank
whatever.
you.
I
But
can't
just
get with
mean
you on
about
that
the
one.
national strike.
Why don't you call Marjorie at home?
I love turning on red.
Alan, thank you. How about the
After a stop, of course.
How about the political question, Governor?
You know what I would say, Alan? Look, and I think there are a lot of us that share the disgust, the frustration with what's happening at the federal level. But I also think, folks, it's really important to do what needs doing here. We have ways every day that we can get involved in our community, that we can make things better for people in our community and make things better for our state. You know, have Massachusetts be the example of what's possible when we work together, what's possible when we engage in things that are constructive. And God knows there's need across our state. So get involved, work with other people. You know, part of what's happened is we've become you know, a world where there's not enough human interaction. And so finding those volunteer efforts, finding those ways to engage in your community, everything starts local. It really does. And these things have ripple effects. So that's what I think is worth investing in. You know, what's happening in a local school? Does somebody need a tutor or a mentor? Or what's the Conservation Commission doing right now? Is there cleanup that's needed? Or, you know, you could just, what needs construction, you know, in your community? I mean, there's ways to get involved. The other thing is mobilize for this fall's election. This fall's election is everything. It's everything, you know. Make sure that you're registered to vote. Make sure that any young person in your home is registered to vote. The numbers across this country of folks who are 18 to 30 years old who are not voting, not even registered to vote, because understandably, they've given up on politicians. They've given up on a government that's left them in a situation where the American dream, which was if you work hard, you will succeed, is not within their reach. That they're finding an economic circumstance that's worse than what their parents inherited. That's not the way this country's supposed to be. And that's why we got to work hard to say to young people, you know, the policies that are going to affect your life depend on the politicians you put in or kick out. Hold them accountable. But getting people engaged in this election is really, really important all around the country. And here in Massachusetts, there are important races, you know, up and down the ballot. School committee, city council, the legislature, you name it. And that's really important.
So you said a minute ago you weren't a political pundit, but you're talking about the importance of the midterm elections. You told us in March that you had endorsed the sitting governor for the U.S. Senate nomination against Susan Collins in Maine. Obviously, she put her campaign, I think, suspended it. Yesterday, she said, I'm still on the ballot. You've read what is the latest issues, troubles, which we're going to talk to listeners about at about 12:40, with the likely nominee, Plattner. If he goes on to win in the primary that's coming up, would he get your support in the final?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. I'm disgusted by what he posted, and I've been disgusted by some of his other, behaviors and antics. But here's the thing. Come November, there's going to be a clear choice. There's going to be Susan Collins on the one hand, who has stood with Trump. Remember that guy, Brett Kavanaugh?
Yeah.
The justice she said wasn't going to overturn Roe? Okay, we now live in a country where 1 in 3 women don't have access to abortion. Susan Collins did not stand with us. She stood with Trump on that. She's continued to stand with Trump. The one big beautiful bill, $1 trillion in health care cuts to food benefits, support of Trump all the way. And that's not who we need in Congress right now. And that's why Susan Collins needs to go. She needs to go for the people of Maine, but also for the people of this country.
We're talking to Governor Healey, 877-301-8970. Kim and Mendon, you're on with the governor. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Karen mentioned where
Hey, Kim, we're going to put you on hold a second. The connection is horrible. We'll try to get it better. In the interim, Simone is at the library with a question for the governor. Simone, hello. Hello. Sorry to interrupt the conversation. How are you, Simone?
Yeah.
Welcome. What's up?
Seems like she has a more important question.
Go ahead.
Okay, my question is really on how your administration looks at the future of elder care. And do you believe the solution should be primarily focused on publicly funded or privately funded or some combination? Where is it going to come from to provide fair wages, career advancement opportunities, and compensation for the workforce?
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about this, but
Okay.
like specifics.
Growing demographic in Massachusetts, and one of the things I was glad to actually change the name of our agency from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs to the Executive Office of Aging and Independence. Words matter, and that's something that we're trying to promote as a team here. How do we set people up and take care of them as they age? Now, when it comes to those who are taking care of folks who are older, we so desperately need them, which is why, as governor, I've supported wage increases. I've supported rate increases for those who are providing care to our seniors. That's a way I'm going to keep that workforce going and protect and promote that workforce. So, we're trying to build more housing. I talked about the housing, the 100,000 units that we've built. Some of that housing is for seniors because we know we have a growing demographic and we need to find and make available units that are going to suit their needs, particularly, as they get older and may have more needs around accessibility. So, these are some of the specific things that I'm doing, but happy to talk more as well.
Go ahead, Margaret.
Do we have time for one more
Yeah,
here?
we do.
Andrea in Northampton, thank you for calling, Andrea.
Hi, Andrea.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Yep.
Wonderful. So I was calling because I was concerned about the apparent closure or lack of census admission for the Pappas Rehabilitation Hospital for Children, which is the therapeutic care that is provided to children. And there's a governor's report that indicates that there's more than 2,000 children in the Commonwealth with complex disabilities, medical and rehabilitative needs who would be eligible or should have access to Pappas. With the census seeming to be dropped and no admissions happening, what is the governor doing to affirm that this facility will remain strong and providing essential services to the families of the Commonwealth?
Yeah. So, as I look at it, we've got kids across the state with disability and with needs. We need to find a way to help them, to help their families. We've got look at what's happening with autism. We've got a growing population here in Massachusetts, and I've talked to a lot of parents, whose kids are aging out of essentially state care at 22 and need to have some options. When it comes to that particular facility, what I'm in the process now with others of doing is looking at that facility, which, by the way, wasn't funded for decades, was allowed to just deteriorate to really deplorable physical plant conditions, which has a wonderful, wonderful staff there, but just wasn't invested in. And so what do you do with that property, and what are the kind of investments there that you may want to make, including making use of some of that land? There's well over, I think, there's hundreds of acres, I think, there. For housing, too, is a possibility. So how do you, the whole thing we've got to do here is we've got to reimagine healthcare. We've got to do something new when it comes to healthcare. And we also need to reimagine, what it looks like to serve that population of young people. And I am working very collaboratively with the staff. My mom was a nurse, and I like to take a lot of advice from the actual experts, the ones who are caregivers, who will help inform and drive, this kind of process and consideration for any of our state facilities.
Andrea, thank you for your question.
Okay, I was just reading some text, Jim, so I was caught.
Well, you're allowed to read a text.
No. I was looking for some ones to read, but I'm still looking for ones to read. Is the bottom is the bottom line.
Okay, well, we can squeeze in really quickly.
But I'll tell you one thing.
Oh, sorry.
I'll tell you one thing, Governor.
Maybe
I'm
we
getting
won't.
tons of texts on data centers. People are worked up into a frenzy about data centers. Like they're very worried about pollution.
Yeah, they
they're
should
very
be
worried about
because data
more and more
centers
than being built.
Yeah,
Bernie Sanders wrote a piece in the New York Times saying that we should be able to get 50% of their profits of AI for building all these data centers.
Well, that's something to look at, right? Because you got to look at if it's a hyperscaler using it, then they're making plenty of money, and that should be a way to help finance and invest in the kind of energy generation that they should be doing. Again, I don't want ratepayers hurt. I don't want residents hurt. I don't want the environment hurt. And I think if you look, across the country, you see the backlash. Look at what's going on in Texas right now, in Arizona, because they just ran in, put these things in, right? And all of a sudden you have blackouts, you have problems with those energy grids. You have drought, right? I mean, these are big things. So, what I've done is I've directed my team to try to get ahead of it here in Massachusetts and think about what's a thoughtful plan and what should be in place and what are the guardrails and what are the ways that this should work.
She just wants to make sure you keep one out of Brookline. Is that not the bottom line, Marjorie?
I don't think there's room for one in Brooklyn. I don't think.
And also, there are different size data centers.
Yeah, that's true. We could have a teeny one.
Did you
teeny
read
tiny.
what they're contemplating in Utah? A data center that is twice the footprint of Manhattan in Utah? I mean...
Oh, my God. That
Exactly.
beautiful landscape?
In any
Jeez.
case, are you going to any of the World Cup games quickly?
I hope to.
Oh, you know what I wanted to ask you?
We've had a great
This
thing.
is
We
like-
just had Franz de Pirot, who grew up in Melrose, was educated at Northeastern. He is now on the Haitian national team. They are playing Scotland in 11 days, and we had him at the State House, and we had a great event with the Haitian community, and it was just, there's a lot of excitement. I was with a kid from Arlington, where I live, who grew up in Arlington. He's playing, Miles Robinson, he's playing on the U.S. national team. So,
great.
we've got
So,
it's
Governor,
going to be good.
We have like 30 seconds left, but I read where you're up at the state convention, every person's worst nightmare, television star like Jim, politician like you, the teleprompter. Bill Clinton. The
Yeah.
But did your heart sink? I mean, did you
No,
get...
I just started talking, and then we got it back on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Governor.
Hey,
Yeah.
great to
See you
see
next
great
month.
to see
Thank
you
you
both.
very
Take
much.
care, everybody.